And we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of Independent Academy, the first one of 2024. And we have an amazing guest today. We have Charles from Sats for AI, which is a very interesting project that combines two of the things that I am mostly focused on at the moment, which is Bitcoin and AI. So,
Awesome.
Charles, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. I think this intersection of Bitcoin and AI is one of the spaces that people should be paying a lot of attention. So I am very much looking forward to this talk. Do you want to begin by giving us a little bit of your background and how you got into this field?
Yeah, sure. I started with AI pretty much at the same time as I started in Bitcoin, which is roughly 2017. And it's only actually this year that for some reason I made the connection of those two things. But I've worked in tech. My background is in business. I did an MBA and business school, et cetera, et cetera. But that's where I worked, where I was an employee before. Worked in IT.
Mhm.
But on the side, I was always, an entrepreneur at heart, and I always loved to kind of tinker and learn how to use things and kind of, reproduce and look on forums and find ways to make things kind of by myself. And so eventually, I launched my own company in AI in 2017. And again, it's pretty much the same time that I kind of found Bitcoin. But again, to me, they were kind of two different things that were kind of not really. I never kind of thought of combining them
Mm.
until early 2023. Now that we're 2024, until last year.
Wow. So you were very early in both of those fields, and now I think you're very early also in making this connection that they
That's
belong
it. That's it. When
together.
you're early in two things and then you combine them, then the intersection of those two things. There's not that many people. I know it's a topic that it's talked about a lot on Bitcoin podcast and talking about AI and how Bitcoin is the best money for it, but not necessarily. People are talking about it as like something in the future. But I just saw how great it would be, and I jumped in to make it happen, not just kind of wait for it to happen.
Yes, awesome, awesome. So do you wanna maybe share about a little bit of your experience, like what has been like to be involved in both fields so early, especially
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
yeah,
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 so I'll
it's
try to separate this into two. So the AI field, again,
mhm.
I was working in IT, quote unquote regular software company, and then I was approached in again 2017. That was kind of the first wave of AI. I don't know if you remember that phase. It was particularly true in Montreal, which is where I'm based. There were a couple of companies that were launching. One of the considered the godfather of AI is actually based in Montreal. He's a professor here, so he has a lot of students, a lot of PhDs that are coming out through him. So Montreal was kind of like one of the hubs for that 2017 AI
Mhm.
wave. And so a couple of companies started to take off and raise money here. And so I was approached by one of them to come and join. And again, I've always been very attracted to anything technological, anything that can improve productivity, my productivity, of the world productivity. I always thought it was very interesting. And so that's when I joined. So I kind of went through that first wave again, 2017, and then it died down a little bit in 2019, and then ChatGPT came out end of 2022, and like it's another wave. But I launched my company when the kind of the hype was dying of 2017. So I've been through a few cycles on that side, and I think ChatGPT was great to get people to understand what it is and what it can do. They did a pretty good job at making it better. But to
Mhm.
me, the number one thing they did really well was making it as a chat product. So making the UI so friendly for anyone. You just go and you start chatting, which is something that people were already obviously doing, with regular people. But now you could kind of ask those questions and you could kind of easily get an answer. Whereas before, you know, there were things that you could already do with the old tech of AI, but it was like API based, or it was like, creating a model, etc. So it was very niche of a product. So, again, I've been through a couple of cycles on the AI front. And then on the Bitcoin front, again, 2017, I guess it was kind of the opposite. 2017 was the crash of Bitcoin, when it was like the takeoff of AI at the time.
Right.
So I got in, yeah, I would say mid 2017. So I lived a little bit of the final bull run, and then I saw it dip pretty significantly in 2018. But it didn't, interestingly enough, it didn't really bother me so much at the time. Um, it was an interesting journey. Again, 2017,
Mm.
I thought it was a cool thing. I've if anything, I've known about Bitcoin very early on. I probably read something about it in 2010, 2011 max. Um, and I thought it was interesting, but to me, I never thought of it as like an investment opportunity. I always thought as like, what can I do with it? And
Right.
at the time, I was like, I don't really see what I could do with it, but I always wanted to kind of keep it in mind. I'm like, when I see like, at some point, I'm gonna run into a problem, and I'm gonna say, oh yeah, that's the tech I need. And so, but it never came up. But like every now and then you'd hear the price crossed $100. I remember that, and thinking, wow. I remember when I first heard it was $100. But again, not thinking, oh, I should have put $100 then, and now it'd be
Mm.
100x. Like, to me, it was never an investment product. It was a tech product, and so the price was like very relevant to me. And I just kind of kept hearing about it. But 2017, again, it was just like, oh, it's cool. And I had a friend of mine who was in. I'm like, oh, let me, you know, put a little bit of money in this thing so that I can understand it better. But it wasn't very a true conviction. That only came in, I would say, 2020. Yeah, 2020. So the next bull run. But I was
Right.
lucky enough that during that bear market of 2017 to 2020, I kind of kept buying every now and then. My friend that I was talking with, just, oh yeah, sure, whatever. Here's a little
Mm.
extra. And so it was only when the price started to go back up in 2020 that I was really curious about, why is the price going up? Like, I just want to understand what's the logic behind it. And then I really, dove down the rabbit hole, as they say, and it's been a constant obsession since. And to the point again that eventually I emerged my one of my passion for AI and what my company was doing with Bitcoin.
Wow, that is quite a journey, truly.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
it's something that a lot of people will like they will most likely experience a similar journey, especially through the ups and lows of the
Hmm.
volatile Bitcoin market. I think that it's one of the things that people say, I came for the gains, I stayed for for the revolution, which is another way
Yeah,
of saying like the number going up attracted me. Then I
yeah,
started wondering, why is it going up? Then I started
yeah,
learning.
yeah. That's what I thought
Mm.
too. Like, I think this is the best marketing. Like, the only way you would hear about Bitcoin in the media traditionally, it was only when the price would go up. Again, when it was $100, then that's it. People would, IT media, anything kind of like tech journal, or and even obviously kind of financial journal. They started talking when it was $100, because it was like
Right.
something worth noting, right? And then
Mhm.
again when it was $1,000. So this is the free marketing that you get from the price going up. And then eventually, people hear about it. They keep hearing, they keep seeing it coming back, and this is how you kind of first your first attraction to it comes from the price, which makes sense,
Yeah, yeah.
especially in markets where the traditional system is not obviously terrible, from political aspect aside. When you live in the developed world, you have a bank account, you have a credit card, the system works okay enough that you don't need to go out to look for something else. So I think in those markets, that's it. Its number goes up. That's the only thing that can be of interest to you at first, and
Hmm.
then hopefully then you start digging. But that's what kind of makes me, I'm on the fence with the ETF talks that is ongoing. I think over at some point it was due to happen if Bitcoin's going to be the major asset that rules the world. At some point, there's going to be an ETF and there's going to be big players.
Yeah.
Um, but so that's what I'm hoping happens, is that some people will first get exposed through the ETF, and then kind of similar to my journey, which they're going to put 5% or whatever of their portfolio, and then the number shoots up, and now it's 35% when everything else went down, or and now they're going to look into it. They're going to be like, well, what's happening? Why is this happening? They can, and then from there educate themselves, and then be like, oh, so actually I have the ETF, but that's not how I should be. Like, that's not what I should have. And from the ETF, kind of like migrate to self custody. That's what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I hope that it is a way for more people to get into the whole journey, into the rabbit hole, and then
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
some of them, I don't think it's going to be most of them, but at least some of them will go through the whole journey.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you say you're in the fence, so is there something,
Well, I
some
mean, yeah, I think like
potential?
everything in life, right? There's pros and cons, right? So
Mhm.
the kind of concerning aspect is, again, now you're gonna centralize a whole bunch of coins on mostly on Coinbase, and
Mm.
then in the hands of BlackRock and whatever, and then if there's a soft fork or a hard fork actually, at some point, then whichever one they decide to go with will heavily influence, especially again super tech savvy users, right? If you just kind of bought the ETF and you're like, oh yeah, I like this Bitcoin thing and it's going up and it's cool, and then, oh, apparently there's like two, they're kind of split in two, I have to choose one, BlackRock says this one, well, I'll stick with BlackRock, right? um, so that's the kind of slightly concerning part, but again, I think it's something that eventually, like, it was due to happen at one point, and
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't kill Bitcoin. I don't think it will, but it's a possibility. Is it 0%? No, I think it's less than 10%, but it's not zero.
Right. Yeah. It seems like it's introducing another vector to keep in mind, something that did not existed before. So yeah, I see both sides of the argument. So let's take a look at sats for AI. Do you Let me share the share screen. Here we go. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about, like, what are you hoping to achieve with this project, and how do
Yeah,
you
sure.
came about it?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I've been in the field of AI for almost 7 years now, and I think it's a really good, great tool, and it can do really cool stuff. Again, ChatGPT was a major evolution, I think, for a lot of people. So when it first came out, I was excited. I tried it and it was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But very quickly, especially as a Bitcoiner, I realized that it had like major flaws due
Hmm.
to the nature of the beast of being such a big, large company. Um, and I think obviously we could go back and dive down to the three different flaws, but just to name them, just to kind of get them out of the way. The number one thing is it's obviously it's permission, right? So you need to sign in, you need to be a user that they have to agree for you to use it. Um, you're not sovereign. If they decide to kick you out, well, you're out. If they don't want to serve your country, you're out. Or if your country doesn't want you to use it, like in China or Russia or whatever, then you're out. So technically, I think if you add up all the countries that have banned ChatGPT, right now it's 1.8 billion people. So
Really?
yeah, Russia and China obviously being so big,
Right.
and then there's a list of like smaller countries, but it's a fair amount of people that can't technically use
Hmm.
ChatGPT, or you have to go through a VPN and kind of go through the hoops. But It's not easily, it's not permissionless. It's not just anybody can join. It's certain people can, other can't. So that's one. The number two thing is obviously, especially with the free version, very quickly. At first, when it first came out, it was free. I'm like, okay, it's beta. They want to test it, maybe, but they kept it, and they still have it free, and they've said we're going to have a free version forever. And we all know how that goes when it's free. You're the product.
Right.
So there's the data harvesting aspect that is quite concerning to me. And then the third thing is obviously that it's not censorship resistant. So the
Hmm.
answers can be it's centralized. It can be very easily censored, and so then you'll never know what's the real value of the answer that you're getting. So those three things to me were like, again, as a Bitcoiner, those are core values to Bitcoin. And then when you see it applied
Yeah.
to AI, I'm like, this is a really cool tech, but this has to be freedom tech. If it turns into a product that makes us, subjected to OpenAI's goodwill as a company, as an entity, as a one person, it's a lot of power put in one company. And so I
Hmm.
wanted to use that wonderful tech of large language models, but in a way that would kind of, again, keep the values of Bitcoin, and so not have those three kind of main drawbacks. And luckily enough, so OpenAI, ChatGPT came out. It was December 2022, and then I think it was in March that there was the first kind of open source model that came out of Stanford. A couple of obviously very bright people, but they managed to get their hands on a llama version, which comes from Meta, which kind of leaked. Like, it wasn't really meant to be open source. The data kind of leaked, and they managed to take ChatGPT and kind of reverse engineer it and make a first version of an open source model. And it was surprisingly good for, again, something that they kind of just put together quickly. That wasn't a full-on product. But the beauty is they made that open source. And so very
Mm.
quickly, different teams around the world, different university, different students, different experts of anything, they would just kind of take it, rework it, improve on it, release it open source. And so very, very quickly through iterations, in a matter of a couple of months, you had a product that was, on par with ChatGPT for certain aspects, and all this being open source. And so being open source meant that you can kind of bypass all those drawbacks that I was mentioning earlier. The only thing is it was still kind of technically challenging to use.
Mm.
And going back to what I said earlier, in the 2017, I could see all this great tech that AI existed, that was able to do, but not making it easily accessible as ChatGPT did. And so this is when kind of two and two came together, where I was like, you can serve it online, do a ChatGPT like experience, but instead of having people paying with credit card, which then has all the issues around, again, permission. Not everybody has a credit card, especially in the developing world. KYC, if you use your credit card, then we know everything about you. So
Hmm.
using Bitcoin to pay for every inference that you would make on the model made a lot of sense. So it would guarantee that you can remain anonymous and private, and also kind of protect against censorship as long as you're using open source models. So that was the idea, was to create an AI platform specifically for Bitcoiners at first, with the logic that they want privacy, they want censorship resistance, et cetera, et cetera. But making it a ChatGPT-like interface. And the beauty, again, is the open source community is so great at releasing new things, improving quickly, and so there's really been a boom around, and all the aspect, not just the LM, not just the chat GPT, so not just the chatting, but also the image generation, video generation, audio generation, like all those things are like booming, and it's pretty much every week you get a new model. So for us, it's really fun to just have the platform, and a new model comes out, we test it, it's great, we just like roll it into the platform to make it easy for users.
Wow. Yeah. It seems like it is a very aligned in all the values that have been driving you and the values that drove you to Bitcoin. So
Right.
it seems like it would be perfect tool for Bitcoiners, people that share those kinds of values as well. And
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
developing the models yourself. You're using this open source that
Yeah.
people
That's
from
it. So
around the world are contributing to.
exactly. So, at first we kind of looked into, we again, I had the company before, so we were doing our own models. We were, working all this. And then when ChatGPT came along, we're like, everything that we had been working on for a couple of years before that, ChatGPT could do almost the same thing.
Mm.
So it was a matter of like, what are we going to do? Are we going to try to compete with ChatGPT? Like we'll never have as much money as they do, and so you can't really compete on that front. Again,
Mm.
the beauty of the open source community is they are doing it, they are releasing it, so they're doing a much better job that we would if we were to put a couple of AI developers on it full time. We'd still be working on something, and then next week someone else comes along with a better product. So at this point, we are just taking the existing kind of like open source models, putting them on as an interface on our platform, and just accepting payment with Lightning on the other end, and that way, I think we can keep up with the tech speed, and we can have always the latest and greatest and best models available to anyone with a Lightning wallet.
Yeah, that is pretty great, especially like as you were talking, I in my mind I keep remembering, like I have a lot of friends that are in communities in Africa, in Zimbabwe, where they can't actually get the accounts to pay for
Mhm.
most of this stuff.
Yeah,
So this
yeah,
will definitely make it so that even in those places people can start benefiting from these tools, right? And
yeah, yeah. Well, that's definitely one of the factors, in my mind. When I said permissionless, that's what I also mean is like you need an account,
hmm,
and that's to use the free version. But the free version is limited. The free version is not the latest and greatest. The free version is not an API. It's just the interface. And so again, there's 1.8 billion people that can't access it at all. And then even those who can't access it, if you want to use the latest and greatest, you need a credit card. And as we know, not everyone's banked, and not everyone has a bank account. And so I saw this was like, there's a future where OpenAI is the one and only, almost like it's the monopoly, like we've seen in tech so many times before, for AI, and it
hmm,
divides the world even more. It the haves
yeah,
and the have-nots are, can you use AI, and if so, then you're going to see crazy gain in productivity in your life. And if you're even if you're a really smart developer in Africa, but you don't have a credit card, then you don't get to join on this, and then you get left behind very, very quickly. So again, the permissionless aspect is very key to me. It was key in Bitcoin for me.
hmm,
It was one of the things that I'm like, everybody's um, equal in the eyes of Bitcoin. Like, no, everybody can join. You just join it. And I remember my first time downloading a wallet. Again, it was my friend. He was like, so I'm like, how do I do this? Is like, go to the App Store, okay, download this, okay, open, okay. It's like, done. Like, I'm just going to send you some Bitcoin. I'm like, wait, I haven't created an account. I haven't signed in. I have, like, it's like, no, that's it. It's just a number. And I was thinking at the time, comparing this, I'm like, compare this to opening a bank account. So, I've said I live in Montreal now, but I grew up in France. So when I moved as an
hmm,
adult, so when I moved from France to Montreal, I had to go and open an account and go through all those hoops as an immigrant. And I
yeah,
remember, having to make an appointment, show up. I needed my passport. I needed my student visa. I needed like a whole bunch of like paperwork. And so when I first moved in, it took me like a month to get an actual bank account in Canada. And again, this is Canada, and I was from France. It's not like it still took a month and a lot of paperwork, and it was a very painful experience. And comparing this to my friend telling me, download this app and open it, and you're done. And I was like, this is like such a crazy aspect of just, you just join in. We don't need to know who you are. We don't need to know where you're from, what skin color, your gender, what country, your age. Like, everybody's equal. You just open and you start. And that's what I wanted for the platform too. Is like, I don't need to know where you're from, what you're looking to do. I don't need anything about your profile. You come, you pay. That's all I need to know. That you're a paying customer. That's it.
Yes, yeah. No, I have a similar experience. I came from Argentina into Australia, and I
Yeah.
had to go through all that process. And I remember going to the bank, and they wanted to know like how much money I was making, how much money I was spending on rent, and they had all that information there. And even to this day, every time I go to the bank, if I have to change anything, they ask me everything again because they want to have the database updated.
Right, right, right.
And sometimes I'm like, why do I need to tell you how much money I earn if I just want to change the pin on on the account? Like,
Yeah,
why?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I also like what you said about how these technologies are creating a gap between those who have the ability to adopt them and those who don't. And
Mhm.
I see that very clearly in my country, especially when it comes to stuff like Bitcoin. Um, with the devaluation of our local currency,
Right.
those people who find a way to operate outside of the system, they benefit massively. And every time I go back, I see that there's like a huge divide between those people that have the knowledge and can operate with all this technology and those who don't.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
clear. And I think with AI, that becomes that is another gap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So I think like this, what you're doing, which is combining all these different technologies and put them together in a way that everybody can access them.
Yeah.
I think
Actually, yeah, I want to
that's
give an
great.
example of around this, around AI and the need for diversity and to giving it to everyone. Recently, I saw some sort of documentary about they find I think it was somewhere in Italy, deep down somewhere under, they found a whole bunch of like paper, paper from that time.
Hmm.
But I think there was like a volcano eruption or something. Anyway, so the paper is burnt. Like it's technically, so it's rolled up and there's something written on it. But if you unroll it, you will destroy it. So they found a way to do some sort of X-rays to access where is the ink and how is the paper, and if you unroll, like, so now they have this data of the rolled up X-rays, and they started to work on AI models to get that and to turn it into the actual text that is contained on the
Hmm.
paper. But going back to my point, so I think they launched some sort of competition. They're like, this is the problem we have. Anyone who's able to help us and achieve and read a letter or whatever, we're going to give you $1,000. If you can read a page, we're going to get X amount of dollars. They had some sort of prize going. And so the guy who won was actually from Egypt, but he was from Egypt, but he was currently studying in London. And I don't know the whole story, so they interviewed him. So I don't know how. Again, you and I, we've moved, we know how it is. So how did this guy from Egypt got to London? I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe his parents were wealthy. I don't know. Maybe he got a bursary. Maybe, anyways. All this to say that there's this one guy who's extremely smart, who is from Egypt, and who could solve a problem that no one else in the AI community that looked at it could. And how lucky are we that because he was able to go to London and he was able to get access to tools and whatever, then he was able to do it. But how many of those, that type of guy do we not have today in the world? Because, maybe, let's say that guy, for some reason, he couldn't have moved to London because, again, he didn't get the prize or whatever. Then we don't get that tech. We
Hmm.
don't get that super bright mind for that specific problem to work on it and to solve it for all of us. And so again, to me, like, how many other like super brilliant guys are there in Africa or in developing nations anywhere on the planet? And because they don't have access to the tech, we will never know what those guys can
Yeah.
produce. And so to me, this is where I'm like, we want the tech to be in the hands of as many people as possible, and the money too. Obviously, the money's key to getting you access to anything you need and want, to create something in the end. So to me, that's again, that's very, very key.
Yes. No, I always said that for me, one of the things that excites me most about stuff like Bitcoin and democratizing AI is that you can suddenly have all these people that traditionally could not participate. You can bring them in and you give them the tools, the same tools that
Mhm.
I can use in Australia. So like what I am hoping to see is this all these creativity, ingenuity, all that stuff being deployed into the global marketplace, and I think that's going to make everyone richer.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Agreed.
And that's one of the
100%.
great things about, like, if you think about Bitcoin as a global monetary network, is that every person that is adding value to the network benefits every
Mhm.
other people that is in the
Yeah,
network. So
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
only bringing all these people in, but they are also adding a lot more value, and that value gets distributed equally to
Mhm.
every member. So
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I am most excited about, is like what's going to happen once we bring all these people in, and now we have a lot more human power, human
right.
creativity. Like artificial intelligence is great, but you still
Mhm.
need people to use it to create things. So the more people that you can have and you can empower them with AI, the better it's going to be for everyone. At
Yeah,
least that's what,
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
I know that there's a lot of fear about AI taking jobs and stuff, but I always think that the more power you give to people, the more things people are going to create, and the better things are going to be in the end.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I understand the fear around AI taking jobs. I mean, some jobs maybe. I think it's a longer term than people think. I don't think it's really ready for tomorrow. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. And I think there's an aspect that I find a lot of people have a hard time grasping is the tech can move very quickly, but yet the speed at which it's deployed remains a human factor.
Mm.
So, even if ChatGPT 5 comes out and it's incredibly great, it's still up to companies to decide, do I want to deploy it or not? And they will take their time and they will test it, and they will, it's like, again, I've been in that in the field and working with customers for a long time. And so the human factor of how quickly do you deploy in the real world, right? Is something that actually is what slows down, and people are only going to deploy or start using or whatever they feel comfortable with. And so I think it slows down no matter how quickly the tech moves. The
Mm.
actual adoption is kind of slow. So I don't see a massive one. ChatGPT 5 comes out tomorrow, and every secretary on the planet, or even 25% of them are out of a job tomorrow. Like, I think it takes obviously longer than that. But overall, I've also kind of witnessed the internet kind of taken off in my teenage years, and you couldn't really predict like how exactly it was going to be used. And
Mm.
I mean, today everybody uses it. Like, we don't feel like, oh, this guy lost his job because of internet. Like, the only thing I would say is maybe people who were renting videotapes or DVDs, or like, okay, those guys, like, okay, yeah, they have the short end of the stick. But most other job, you just kind of do your job differently with the internet, but it didn't really make your job disappear. Um, so I
Yeah,
tend to see a similar trend here.
yeah, I think so, and I think like what a lot of people don't take into account, like for example, if you say, yeah, the internet killed something like Blockbuster because there's not
Mhm.
people renting DVDs
Right.
or tapes. But now also like the cost of accessing movies for every individual has dropped
Hmm.
significantly.
Hmm.
The same
Yeah.
with like Spotify and music. And now every single person has more money to do other stuff. So like it's not like the value gets destroyed, it just gets
Hmm.
distributed to other sectors. So yes, there's going to be maybe some industries that get affected, but that drops the costs of that sector for everyone. So
Yeah.
that's going to create a lot more opportunity. And even like someone like me, like I use AI a lot,
Hmm.
and I am able to do things that by myself it would have been impossible before. And that's something that is available for everyone, especially now with tools like stats for AI, literally everyone.
Hmm.
So like the opportunities for every single individual is going up exponentially, I think. So
Yeah.
I am very very I have a very positive outlook towards the future. I think this is going to be great for everyone, and that's why I started this whole independent academy, which the thesis is we're going through a very massive transformation in a lot of different industries and technologies and stuff. So the traditional education is not really keeping up, and
Hmm.
there's going to be massive opportunity. So we need to, like, what I want to do is learn as much as I can and try to teach other people how to also take advantage of everything that is happening, which is wild. And sats for AI again is combining everything into one single product that anybody can start using straight away. And it also, to me, it's a very good use case for Bitcoin itself. Like you were
Hmm.
saying in the beginning, like you were very interested in Bitcoin, you saw it as a tool, which I think is,
Hmm.
like, I see it as a tool as well. And there were not enough use cases other than, number go up over time,
Right.
store
Yeah.
value, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, it's a little bit harder to understand for people. It's a bit more of a process to go through. So having a tool like sats for AI that you need Bitcoin to use, I think it also adds a value to Bitcoin itself, and it can serve as a onboarding mechanism into Bitcoin. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm hoping too. Is that eventually, the open source models are getting better and better. There's a chart that came out from ARK Invest, which are, is kind of like a known name in the Bitcoin field, but essentially they were showing how good the models were from ChatGPT. So the closed models versus the open source models, and you could see the trend of like how quickly the gap is closing. And obviously, if you extrapolate, at some point they said in 2024, open source models become better than closed source models. Again, that's an extrapolation. Like, we're not there yet. I think the closed source models or the open source models are better at certain tasks,
Hmm.
but not overall. Like, I find ChatGPT is good as being like an overall tool. Um, but if you look at specific tasks and you have specific models, they can beat ChatGPT specifically on that task. But all this to say that I'm really looking forward to the open source models being so much better and again, easy to use through ideally through a platform like we're building, making the UI and UX so simple that you don't need to know what's the model that's running behind, and you don't need to choose, and you don't need to like do all those things. You just say, I want to,
Hmm.
do text generation, and right now we're on the first iteration. There's just one model for text generation, but then we could say, and what do you want to do with text? Do you want to do a summary? Do you want to create a new content? Do you want to do coding? And you kind of just select that, and then from there, we choose the best model to do the task that you're looking at, and hopefully, and then we can achieve better results than ChatGPT. And then now you're turning to people that are AI users, and they want to use the best AI tool possible. And now it's not available through ChatGPT; it's only available through SAS for AI as a
Hmm.
as a UI like that. And now they're going to buy Sats to use the product. And then that's to me that's success. Like, once we reach that step, like, okay, I think we made a pretty solid contribution here.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. And like, especially for people that like, I use AI a lot, and I have an ChatGPT Pro subscription. And to me, it makes sense to have a subscription because of how much I use it,
Hmm.
because it ends up costing me very little per use. But I think for a lot of people, it doesn't really make sense to pay $20 a month
Hmm.
if you're only needed it for specific times, specific use cases. So the pay per use model that is also like an advantage for most
Mhm.
people,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
if they just want to test it and they don't want to commit to a $20 a month subscription and having to put their information on the credit card and all that stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
mm,
Agreed. To me, it was like one of the things that I absolutely wanted is like no sign up, nothing. Like you come, you use it, you pay. Like this is it. I wanted, I don't need to know anything about you, and I just want it to be you try it, you test it, you like it, and you keep coming back. Great. But I don't need to make you through the very painful process I find of like signing up and I find like this is something that we kind of got used to because that was the only way that we've known for a long time. And it's actually one of the things for Sets for AI is that when I'm talking to people about it the first time, they're like, "Oh, okay,
mm,
but like I'm gonna, I can see in their mind like, oh, I'm gonna have to sign up." Like when they tested the first time, and if I'm next to them, and like I don't even need to sign up. I'm like, no. Again, going back to my first experience with Bitcoin and just downloading the wallet and opening it, I'm like that. I want that experience. Like you just come, you use it, and that's it. Um, but going back to that point is you want to make it as easily accessible as possible, and
mm,
again, no sign up, you come, you pay, and if you use it more, you pay more. But I think that's the other aspect. The other thing that we're used to is the subscription model,
mm,
and to me, the subscription model is due to the fiat system. The fiat system makes it that the pay-per-use is difficult because I don't know if of your listeners how many are programmers, but if you've ever created any kind of app or anything online and you want it to take payment, so you look at Strikes, you look at PayPal, you look at like the different services to make it so that users can pay you, and all those services are pretty much the same model, which is a 30 cents fee per transaction, and then 2.7 or 2.9% fee on the actual money. So someone sends you $100, they keep three plus 30 cents. So because of that initial 30 cents per transaction, you have to charge at least 31 if you want to start
you're
making
right.
money. So you can never charge less. And again, even at 31 cents, you're obviously not making much. So that's why they all have to move to like 3, 4, 5, 9. They all have to be in the dollar amount denomination and pretty high up, because other than that, you're not making money. So they have to move to that higher denomination, and so therefore they need to make it a membership, a monthly subscription.
Hmm.
Um, and the problem is, at first you could think, oh yeah, that's great. I'm only paying this or whatever. It's only this per month. But as you kind of pile up on your number of subscription, and then some month you're going to use more, others you don't. Sometimes you have subscriptions that you don't even use at all. It happened to me a couple of times, and I'm very diligent on that. To sign, like you're like, what am I paying Amazon Prime for? Like like they find a
Yeah,
way to kind
yeah,
of loop you in, and you're like, oh, I've been paying the last 3 months I've been paying for Amazon Prime, and like anyway, so I really I dislike this model. I find it very uh, again fiat based, and I think pay per use makes a lot more sense, especially when it's really cheap.
hmm,
And so that's what we're thinking. With Sats for AI, the current model that we have for text generation is 30 sats, so it's like less than 2 cents per prompt. And so even if you go and you do 10 prompts per day, it's only going to be 20 cents per day. So
right.
even if you do this every day for a month, it's $6.
Hmm.
And again, so your max would be your most likely max will be $6, and some month maybe it's going to be 7, and others going to be 2. Like so overall, at the end of the year, you're obviously you know, saving a lot more than paying $20 every month.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
you go on vacation, it's Christmas, or whatever happens, you don't use it for a couple of weeks, you're still paying $20. Like that's what they kind of prey on too in the subscription model is like you're hoping that your customers don't use your product too much. Like essentially, that's what it is. You're like, oh, we want him to use it enough that he keeps the subscription alive, but not too much that it's costing us too much. And I find it's a very misaligned incentive model. I want my users to use as much as possible because they love it, because they like it, because they get more value. And I'm in line with like giving them as much as they like so that they keep coming back. So that's the way I see it is you can try to be as aligned as possible with your users, and then you know
Mm.
everybody's heading in the same direction.
Yes, yes, definitely. The way you explain how the traditional app works, it seems like they're finding a workaround to the problem instead of fixing the actual problem, which is
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
why
yeah,
do we have this 30-cent minimum? Because you're right,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of economic activity that you cannot do if you have that minimum threshold, even if it's something like 30 cents, which sounds very small. But again, if a prompt costs less than 3 cents, there is no
yeah,
way to do it
yeah,
through
yeah,
the traditional medium. And as well, like they charge 2.9% on top of that, which
yeah.
you as a company don't get straight away because it has to go through the whole system. Whereas with lighting, you get it instantly.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's another point too that I didn't really mention is the chargeback issue. So when you're getting paid as a business, you're getting paid through credit card. The money only makes it to your account like 6 weeks later because it's on hold for 6 weeks, just in case the credit card was stolen or the customer's gonna claim that money or say, oh, actually I didn't spend this. So there's the whole stolen credit card, which is a real problem. um, but there's also sometimes even people they just forgot that they paid this, or they don't even remember, and
Yeah.
they're going to contest a charge. And if it's a few dollars, you're not going to start spending hours on end fighting back with Visa and say, no, actually it is a legitimate transaction, the customer did sign up, here's the server stamp time, and here's this and here's that and here's the IP when he logged in, and like trying to fight for $3. So as a business, you just let it go. You're like, oh well, that's it. Like so you have to build into your model that X percentage of transactions are going to not go
Mm.
through, so then you need to mark up your price even more based on that. So this is
Right.
where again, Lightning shines, is that the fees are lower, it's instant settlement, so I can charge less to my customers because they are paying me a Lightning, and so therefore I can deliver more value per unit of account, or whatever you want to terminology you want to use, but I can give more to my users because of Lightning versus the traditional system.
Yeah, and that is completely fulfilling the promise of Bitcoin itself, which was
Mhm,
we're gonna replace the inefficient system, so
mhm.
it's gonna be better for you as a business operator, and it's gonna be better for you as a customer, because now all that stuff in between, we can just replace it with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bitcoin.
That's it exactly. Like if I was to think, let's say there would be a competing product to Sats for AI, but they would only take credit card. I could kill, like, I'll be better, I'll be cheaper than them any given day. Like they're gonna have to outmuscle me very, very strongly on the operation side to make up for that credit card, fees and everything around it. And so it's guaranteed that I'm cheaper than you any given day. So that, going
Mm.
back to what we were saying earlier, if I'm cheaper than you, then more people want to use my service versus your service because I'm cheaper. Even if we serve the exact same open source models, I'm cheaper than you. People are going to come to me, and so then they're gonna want Sats to pay because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to go and buy Sats and use my service than it is to pay with credit card for your service.
Yeah, and even like you can combine it like this is something that I do regularly, which is listening to podcasts on Fountain, and every day I earn some free sats, so I can just start using those sats here, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
perfect.
yeah, yeah. I do use Fountain too. I'm a little frustrated that I find that you never really know how much Sats you're gonna get. Like I find like I don't know like how many sats per minute am I gonna get on this or this, and sometimes it's zero, and it's very disappointing. Like you're like, well, zero
Yeah.
is the price. Zero is the normal price you get from other apps, but like it's frustrating when it's zero. But anyway, so yeah, you can that's the beauty is like I was talking before when I was an employee and I had to travel a little bit for work, and so I had to go to hotels and book plane tickets, and so you're chasing miles because again, it's not your money, it's the company money, right? So you're like, oh, if I go to this hotel, I get more miles than and then you use the miles obviously personally. But anyways, you're kind of chasing miles. And then I remember having it like an Excel sheet, and I'm like, oh, at this company I have X amount of file, trying to keep track of my miles and optimizing how much I was gonna make for every trip that I had to take. And I see sats as like the 1 mile, it's a type of miles, but it's the same miles for everything and everywhere. And you can spend it, you can get it from one place and you can spend it on another place. And they never expire on like regular miles that always expire. They don't go down in price. Oh, well, sometimes, but in the long run, they tend to
In the
go
long
up
run.
in value. Whereas like, again, hotel miles or air miles or whatever you want to look at, they always devalue them. Oh, a trip to France is 2,000 miles. Oh, actually, now it's 1,200. No, now it's 15. Like you would see the price going up. So anyways, all this to say that I see sats over lightning is exactly this, is like miles that you can earn from anywhere, make from anywhere, spend anywhere. And that's very freeing as a user.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Especially like I am planning to go back to Argentina in a few months,
Okay,
and
for
it is so
good
much.
or for just traveling or for
We're planning with my wife to stay there for a year.
okay.
I think everything that's happening over there now with the new president Milei, and
Hmm.
as someone who wants to teach people how to use all these new technologies, I
Right.
think that
Yeah.
right now
True.
it
That's
seems
the
a
place
better
to be
place
for
to
you.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
than
Makes
here
sense. Makes
in
a ton of
Australia.
sense.
So yeah, we're going for 1 year and we're gonna see how it goes.
Hmm.
But yeah, the rate of adoption of Bitcoin and all this stuff over there is way higher than here in Australia.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah. No, that's something I find. Latin America um, is such a like an interesting region
Hmm.
for the coming years.
Yeah.
Whereas again, I'm in North America, so I can ride that wave in terms of like not going down too quickly. But as I mentioned, I'm originally from France. I still have my family in France, and I see Europe as like actually crashing much faster than North America. And meanwhile, regions like I said, Latin America, and even kind of like Middle East, Turkey, India, like that region of the world kind of rising as well. And so I think if you have the opportunity, I think that's you want to be where the tide is rising, right? Like so you can rise with it. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
definitely interesting.
And also like here, if I try to go and teach people about Bitcoin and all this stuff, there's not a lot of interest.
Okay.
Whereas in Argentina, as well, like as someone who gets paid in Bitcoin over there, like I don't know if right now, but very recently, Bitcoin was in an all-time high against
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Argentinian
Yeah,
peso.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Against the
So
peso. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, even with all the volatility that is in Bitcoin, because of the devaluation of the local currency,
Hmm. Hmm.
you still are better off just holding Bitcoin than holding pesos.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
everything there is priced in pesos.
Right.
So if you get paid in Bitcoin or in dollars, the cost of living drops significantly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
And that
it's
that
funny.
is yeah, and that is one of the main reasons why the adoption is so high,
Right.
because it
Yeah.
is a massive advantage
Right.
and
Yeah.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
want that advantage, of course.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's it. It's much easier to sell to someone who's experienced very very high inflation and they
Mm,
see it daily, right? They know. You don't need to explain. Like,
Yeah.
you know, in Canada, I'm still talking to people and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, inflation, yeah, it was hot, but you know, whatever, it was due to this, and it's getting back down and it's getting back to normal. And I'm like, but even normal is not normal. Like, you know, even
Yeah.
2% is not normal. Like, anyways, but going back to what you were saying, I was always wondering, especially after El Salvador, and people say, oh, you know, Bitcoin's volatile, and I'm like, it is, but I'm like, how? Like, I wanted to keep track because I'm like, let's say someone in El Salvador gets paid in Bitcoin, like, you know how, and it deeps. Like, I can understand that if you're making minimum wage and you know you
Yeah.
you get your salary at the end of the month, and then you still have to live through the rest of the month with that money that potentially went down. And so one of the things that I started tracking, I think about last year, was, you know, obviously kind of daily price of Bitcoin, but one of the things is the 30-day moving average.
Hmm.
And again, over the course of it, so last year was, you know, kind of special, like but overall, you would see like the price at any given day, and if you go back 30 days, it actually doesn't move that much. And if anything, it goes up. Like, again, lately, you'd have to run this over 4 years to really get a good sense of it. But
Hmm.
I find it doesn't really move much over a 30-day period. If anything, it goes up. Except, but there are times that are brutal. But, like, you know, I find we hear a lot, Bitcoin's volatile, I think Bitcoin's volatile only on very extreme days. Like, yes, there are very brutal days where it drops very significantly, but it's a very short period of time. It's not volatile every day and every given
Yeah.
month, and you know, it's not constantly going up and down and up and down and up and down. It has very, you know, upswing and down, but overall, on a day-to-day basis, it's actually pretty stable. Like, so I think that's it. If you can get your salary in that currency, especially compared to a currency that just keeps dropping anyways,
Yeah.
you know, the risk is minimum. But you know, El Salvador was also a unique case because they didn't have their own currency, so it's not like they weren't sacrificing anything, right? Like, they were just saying,
Hmm.
well, we had the dollar, now we're gonna have the dollar in Bitcoin. You know, they didn't have to renounce to their own currency, which I don't think is the plan in Argentina, for unless they want to really go fully dollarized. But I don't think that's the plan. You'd know better than me, but
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things that I always tell. A lot of people think that Argentina is going to be the next El Salvador,
mm-hmm,
and what I think that it would be great if it happened, and I hope that it does. If I were going to bet, I would bet that it won't, because the
mm-hmm,
government, I don't think is gonna want to give up their own currency.
mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
is very, very useful for them to have
Yeah,
something that they can
yeah, yeah,
devaluate at will.
true,
Even
yeah,
though the current president Milei, he says that he wants to, I don't think there's going to be enough of a support for that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But we shall see. But yeah, I
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I don't think people understand very well, that why it was the case with El Salvador. Like, they didn't have their own local currency,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and that is a big, big hurdle.
mm-hmm,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's, I mean, uh, anyways, to me, doing the, you know, letting people set their contracts in whatever currency they want, like saying, you know, yes, we have our own currency, but you're free to deal in any currency that you want. I
yeah,
I think this is what matters, because
hmm,
you know, I'm all for kind of like organic adoption, you know, bottom up as opposed to top down. And so
yeah,
give people the choice, and if you give them like, I don't want Bitcoin to be imposed like like a fiat currency was, right? So
hmm,
let people choose. You know, Bitcoin's free. Again, you choose it, you don't have to use it, it's opt-in. So if you like it, if you find it's better, then that's the one you use. If you found something else that you like better, you know, go for it. And ultimately, given the weapons that Bitcoin has, I think it will win. But you need the only way to know is to let the battle happen, right? Like if you can think about it all you want, just let the battle happen. We'll see who wins, so that's what I that's what matters to me. What I think is just say make it no capital gain tax, let people settle what their contracts in whatever currency they want, free market,
Yeah.
and let it go, and we'll see who wins. But I'm pretty convinced that Bitcoin has a good fighting chance here.
Yes, yes. I think the same way, and I also think like if you are someone that believes that Bitcoin is the best form of money, then you should be all for free markets, because in the free market, the best one will rise.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I prefer, like you said, the bottom up approach rather than top
Mhm.
down.
Yeah.
Um, I think like while what happened in El Salvador, it looks like it's gonna pay off massively for them. It also like it is quite it has a bit of a political cost that I don't think most politicians are willing
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
take. So it
Yeah.
takes a very
Yeah.
special person like Bukele, whatever people may think of him, love it or hate him.
Mhm.
Um, it is a very special kind of person to make such a bold move and then go through it even when Bitcoin crashed, like
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody, any politician in Argentina is gonna be able to do that,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I don't even want them to. I just want them to open, let
Yeah.
people do what they want, and let Bitcoin do its thing.
Yeah. 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 I think that's again, that's how it has to be. Just let people choose, and I think it's very encouraging to see different communities of Bitcoin across the world kind of starting by
Mm.
themselves and growing and taking from there. Even Bukele himself has credited Bitcoin Beach as being one of the operations, one of the factors deciding for him to do it is like he's seen it in a small community. He's like, oh, let's do this countrywide. But I'm going to Costa Rica next week for
Oh, nice.
Bitcoin Freedom Festival, and it's in what's called Bitcoin Jungle. I don't know if you've heard of it,
Hell
but
yes.
it's apparently a small town. I'll see next week, but a fairly small town, about 3 hours away from the capital, and based on people that have been there, they say you have like even higher adoption there in that small town than you do in Beacon Beach or even in San Salvador, which is not great. I was there a couple of months back. You can pay in Bitcoin, but it's not everywhere yet, right?
Mm.
But apparently in that little uh, town in Costa Rica, it's like I mean my hotel is booked and I'm paying Sats. I'm gonna rent a
Wow.
motorcycle there. I'm gonna pay in Sats. I've already looked up on BTC Maps. There's like 7 or 8 restaurants that are there that you can go and eat and pay in Sats. So it's very promising. So I'm looking really forward to seeing it in a very tight community like this where you go and you try, and then I think this is how it grows, right? It goes
Mm.
from here and it just kind of gets bigger and bigger, and as we can light fires everywhere on the planet, small little fires, and then they just kind of grow. And I think this is how it has to go again, bottom up then rather than top down.
Yes, yes. No, I heard about Bitcoin Jungle, and I know there's a lot of other similar projects that got started after seeing the massive effect that something like Bitcoin Beach can have. Because Bitcoin Beach was, like you said, was a very small community, but it started a chain reaction that changed the entire country.
Yeah,
And even
yeah.
now, people are looking at what El Salvador is doing, and it's changing a lot of the politics around the neighboring countries. So it's like a small thing can really turn into like massive changes. And I know that the Bitcoin Lake got started in Guatemala right
Hmm.
after. We have Bitcoin Jungle in Costa Rica. We have Praia do Bitcoin, which is in Brazil. And there's
Right.
a lot that are start to pop up, and that is very exciting as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I've heard in Africa too. They have like a couple of small communities there that are starting to, and I find this like very, inspiring to see, and especially again me being from France. There's a lot of African countries where they speak French, right? Like this is their
yeah.
language that they speak, And France is still printing the money for those currency, like for those countries where it's not our currency. We use the euro, but we still manage for them the African francs, and it's actually one of those horrible things that is helping France kind of
Yeah.
exploit Africa. Anyways, so if when I see those countries that kind of start to use Bitcoin and use again free money as opposed to that currency that's kind of coming from abroad, it's one of the things that I hope as we encounter success with Sats for AI is to try to make something and like use Sats for AI somewhere in Africa and help those countries and help communities grow from there. Because I think this is this is a way to like we said in the beginning, to avoid that split in society and like the haves and the have-nots, and to kind of try to get everyone on board and on the same train, and on their way to human flourishing. So that's it's very inspiring to see all those projects coming together. And the beauty again is that it's open source. So
Hmm.
and even if it's like it's open source, at least in the spirit. So anyone who's done a project is more than happy to go and talk to anybody and say, oh, we did this at first, this worked, this didn't work. Oh, if I was to do it again, I would change this. So you learn from all those lessons, and you just kind of restart and initiate a project in a different part of the world where and you just adapt it for what you know about the reality of this space.
Mhm.
And so I think we're just improving in how good and how quickly we can ramp up those communities. And so I have a hard time thinking that 10 years from now we can't even name all those communities, and it's just like every country there's at least two or three, and then as big
Hopefully, yeah.
like, oh, where do I want to go on vacation? Like, oh, let's go to that country. Okay, let me look up the couple of communities, and this is where I want to go, because that's how it is for me. Like, again, I'm going to Costa
Mhm.
Rica for a conference, but I'm going because of Bitcoin Jungle. Like, I don't want to go on vacation anywhere else where there wouldn't be any Bitcoiners. Like, there's no point. Like, I just want to go where the community is, and meet like-minded people.
Yes, yes. I hope that vision comes true. I think we are heading in that direction, and it is happening in real time. Now we gone through the hour, and we haven't had a chance to test
Oh,
the
right,
platform
yeah.
itself.
Right,
But yeah, that's all right. I will do some separate videos showing
sure.
everything that you can do in it. So we have text, that would be like a chat GPT.
Hmm.
We have image, so that would be kind of like a Mid Journey or
Right.
DALI kind of creation for images. What is vision?
Sure. Yeah. So vision is actually kind of like they have ChatGPT Vision. So basically, you upload an image, and then you can ask questions about the image. So here
Mm,
we've been a little tricky here, and showing an image of Mr. CW, and asking if he is Satoshi. And I haven't cheated. I haven't given the answer. This is purely the model, that the open source model. And I put that image up and I said, is this Satoshi Nakamoto? And I guess as people are seeing right now, you can pay using LB, but you can also pay with just flashing the QR code. And the model says it's not.
that's right.
So don't sue me. It's the open source model. But so this is, a way that we wanted to kind of illustrate what it does. But you can upload any image and say, please describe this image for me. Please tell me. You can actually kind of get technical. You can write up a math equation and say to solve it. Um, you can. I've seen a very interesting use case where someone took a pictures of like a parking limitation post, and there was like a lot of limitations. So you can't park here on Tuesday after 6, but and not on Friday before 3, and not between March and December, and whatever, like a whole bunch of limitations that were all kind of piled up on a post.
Mm,
And so you would take that picture and upload it and say, it is Tuesday at 3, can I park here? And he was able to extract all the limitations and all the rules, and then see based on the time and day that you said it was, to say, yes, you can park here because it's this rule doesn't apply or whatever. So it's actually an interesting multimodal as you name it in NLM lingo now. So you can interact with AI by typing and chatting and potentially your voice, but also with images and letting the AI quote unquote see what you wanted to see.
Wow, wow. I definitely need to play around with it, and we'll create a separate video for each one, showing
Sure.
people how it's easy to use. And then the voice will be to, yeah, just create an audio file.
Yeah, that's it. So you type, what you want to say. Unfortunately, right now, but we've set a limit to the text field, so you couldn't go over. But we're
Mm.
limited to about 20 or 30 seconds of text. But you can type anything you want, and then you can choose voices. So if you look actually under right now, I think it says Angie, which is kind of Angelina Jolie, De Niro, Emma, and Freeman. You guys can guess, who's inspired those voices. But anyways, it's kind of like a fun way to have a specific message if you want to record it without using your own voice. We kind of wanted to showcase the kind of cool AI models that are out there right now as they come along. When we started, we didn't have Vision. Vision only came a few weeks back when it was released, and we're like, oh yeah, that's a cool, nice little model and feature. So we kind of wanted to give it to put it on the platform and see which one's being used and see which one people really like. I think image is definitely the number one. Like this is really the one that people like to use the most, and then text generation. Audio and vision, people kind of play with it, but it's not something that people use daily.
Mm.
Image generation is really the one that you can really see constantly people coming in and generating images. I'm assuming to post on social media to kind of like highlight their post or illustrate their post or whatever. I sometimes people tag Stats for AI, on X or whatever, and after using their image, but I not all the time. It doesn't correspond. The tagging doesn't correspond to the number of use cases we have. So I think some people want to kind of keep it a secret as to where they get their images from, which is fine.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that happens usually with creators. They sometimes they don't want other people to know. They want to keep that advantage for themselves.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
that's one of the beauty of like image generation like this is like then the image that you've generated, especially when you've used an open source model, there's no doubt that this image is free of right. Like it's your
Mm.
like you are free to use it for any use that you want. And actually, I have a friend of mine who has a kind of like a real estate company. So absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin, and he's heard me talk about Bitcoin a couple of times. He's still kind of like on the fence, and he doesn't really know. He only says, "Oh yeah, the price goes up and whatever." But anyways, he was making a website because he started this kind of new company and this new service. And I was telling him, like, do you need images for your website? He's like, yeah, I need like buildings, and I need like someone doing an inspection on the building. And so I'm like, so what's your plan? He's like, well, I've looked up online to buy those images, or I'm going to shoot, I have this friend who's a photographer. He's going to come, he's going to take pictures, like images of me doing it. And I'm like, what if I told you that you could just go and type, tall white building in sunny day, whatever, with a man standing in front and taking notes, and it would create an image. And he was like, wow, that would be amazing. And I'm like, what if I told you that this would only cost like 200 sats, which is technically 10 cents? I'm like, it would only be 10 cents for you to get an image like this. And he couldn't believe it. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's try it. So I showed it to him, and he couldn't believe. So we generated like 5 or 6 different images for his website. And I'm like, those images are like, they're yours. You own them. There's no like copyright on it. Whereas if you go online and you Google and whatever images you would get, most of them you would have to pay a kind of a royalty or a copyright on it. So that's the beauty of those models, and especially open source models, is there's no copyright to whatever you've entered as your prompt and got as a result.
Yes, and I want to show people like there's other one stuff that I do that anybody can do. They can create images, and then there's it's called print on demand
Okay.
stores, and you can create one for free, and like this one I created, and I put my image there.
Nice.
And you can create your own store, and because it's print on demand, they only get create the item only gets created when someone buys them.
Okay.
So all this stuff, and I have a bunch of different designs with Bitcoin and things like that, and they do shirts and mugs and phone cases and all of that, and it
Nice.
cost me zero money to set up.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That. Wow. Yeah. That's smart.
that's something that people can do. And I have don't remember the website at the moment. No, it's not this one. I create. I also create. I use the image generation to make books, like illustrated books for children,
Hmm.
and I use all the images. I create them with AI. So
Nice.
yeah, so that, like, there's a lot of stuff that people can do. Just my subscription just ended.
Of course. Talking about the
So you
subscription
go,
model, the aura of the subscription
there you go,
models.
there you go, subscription model again. But yeah, like once you start having access to this technology, there is a lot of things you can do,
Hmm.
and then you
Hmm.
can quickly start setting up your business or your side hustle or whatever it is that you are building. And this is how you can empower yourself using these technologies.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
again, my website as well, all the images, I created them with AI. A lot
Nice.
of even the text that is in the website itself is,
Hmm.
it's not me typing it, it's me
Yeah.
communicating with the AI and then doing a few edits so it sounds like me, and I put it there. But it just makes everything so much faster and so much easier, and it drops the cost of production, just brings it down to almost zero, like a few sats
Yeah.
per
Yeah.
query.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's what's truly amazing is anything again that you can generate today. So it's for now it's mostly text and images, but in the future, what else is it going to be? But yeah, anything text, you start. Yes, you need to edit it. You still want to read it. You still want to make sure that it's fine, that it's coherent. It's something that you do agree with. There's no major mistake, but compare this to starting with a blank page on a
Yeah,
Word document where you're like, oh, okay, now I need to write about this, and like how long does it take you before you get to a first draft? Well, the first draft is out in seconds, and then it's only a
mhm.
matter of you editing and removing and improving it. But it's a lot faster than again starting from a blank page. So definitely a lot of productivity improvements thanks to that type of tech for sure.
Yes, yes. So that's one of the things I want to help people understand how they can start using it, and that's why I created the Independent Academy channels, and that's what I'm trying to communicate. Because I like we said in the beginning, it's one of those technologies that it's gonna create a gap between the people that
Hmm.
learn
Hmm.
how to use it effectively and those who don't. So I think in today's episode we've learned a lot. Thank you, Charles, for all the time that you
My pleasure.
dedicated. And we will create a lot of guides and tutorials to show people step by step how to use SATs for AI, and then all this other stuff that you can do once you learn how to use the technology. Because one thing is, okay, I can create text and images, and
Hmm.
the other is, okay, what can you do now that you have the
What else?
power
Yeah,
to
yeah,
create
yeah,
text and
yeah,
images?
for
So
sure.
that's when all that other stuff that I was showing would come into play. So I don't know if you want to leave with final statement, and maybe where can people follow you and stay in touch with the project, and then we'll add those links in the description of the video.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the best way would be just go on the website and try it out. So it's satsforai.com. And then on satsforai.com, we have links to both our Noster and Twitter X account. So I think this is the best way to kind of like keep up. And as we release new models, as we improve, as we have new features coming up, this is where we're going to release it and talk about it. And as a final word, I would just say, stay humble and stack sats.
Of course, and we definitely need to do an episode dedicated to Noster. We haven't done one yet,
Okay.
and that's another tool that is quite interesting,
Yeah,
especially
for
like
sure.
like
For sure.
like some people are using it to earn sats. So it's like, okay, you can earn sats on Nostr, then you can use them on sat for
Right, right,
AI.
yeah.
And you
Yeah,
start
yeah,
creating
that's
these.
that's one thing that we're looking at is eventually if potentially serving Sats for AI through Nostr. So instead
Oh,
of going
wow.
to the website on Nostr, you could, ping Sats for AI and say, oh, I want, answer this question or generate this image or whatever. And again, because on Nostr, the payment rails are already part of the protocol. So you could pay as you are pinging us, and then get your answer back on Noster. And those are things that we're kind of looking at long term. But I think it'd be a great way to kind of decentralize also like all our backend and everything.
Right.
But this is again for another episode.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. And yeah, just so you know, like I'll be happy to have you again whenever there's some update or something that
Awesome.
you wanna communicate. So we'll definitely stay in touch, and I will be exploring and finding more use cases for sats for AI.
Awesome.
So thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone that has been watching this either live or the recording. Stay tuned. We have another amazing guest for next week, and every week we'll bring someone new that is working on these uh, new technologies and new tools that we can use to become more independent in our lives and improve our current situation. That's what we're striving for. So thank you, Charles, and everyone. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Thomas.